The Christmas week is upon us and the cricket season truly commences as controversies, currencies and constances accumulate for another Christmas cracker. It's tipped to be 40 degrees in Melbourne on Boxing Day. A sold-out crowd is expected. But what can we expect from the Australian media? Are India the bad guys? Will our kids need to learn Hindi to ask a question? Is this all just a giant distraction from the Big Bash League being the best T20 league in the world? I guess we'll find out. One thing we did ask for this year was a brand new shiny toy, and there looks to be a 19-year-old plaything for us to ride around the Christmas tree this year. Maybe this will be the thing that makes us happy, unless, of course, you're not from New South Wales, in which case it's going to make you take the tinfoil off your turkey, off your ham, and slap that thing on your head while you protect your brain from conspiracy theories and 5G. Gee, Boomer is a good bowler. Paul Kennedy joins us on the couch to discuss how the South Asian immigration is aiding Australia's future in the game. There's AskTGC and everything in between, which has been a minute because so much has happened, and we need to touch base before we go into a tryptophan-induced Christmas cricket coma. But this is where the cricket season starts, Pezza. We made it. We are here. Pezza, how the bloody hell are you?
Good. This is our grand final, really. There's a few different grand finals that people have. Penguins had their grand final at the Gabba.
Oh, what a treat they had.
Sensational time for them. But for the cricket nonsense among us, I mean, we get 10 days of wall-to-wall stuff, and it's begun. You can see it. Everybody is tipping in. And look, it's 1-1. There's legacy on the line. There's new toys. The old guard's bristling at Bailey. There's cry more stuff in the media. Who's feeling more heat post-Gabba?
Yep.
India, Australia. The Blobby League is hot and funny. Buzz Rothfield works for the PIF now. And now Melbourne is set to swelter amid Boxing Day press furor as temperature records loom. How could you not be happy?
Hit all the KPIs there.
The stage is set.
Yeah.
Sorry that we haven't been around for a couple of weeks. Scheduling stuff. It's all it is. It's sort of, when do you do your podcast pre-Gabba, but the game's about to start, then the Gabba's on, then it goes for 5 days, then we got live shows and everything.
I wouldn't say we've been invisible or gone missing.
That's right. You know, guys need carrots. Blokes need carrots from time to time. Here we are on Monday. Do you do a podcast post-Gabba, then come back on the Monday and just do more content? Maybe.
Boys, where have you been, except for on stage doing dailies on the ABC and Channel 7 doing commentary? Where have you been?
Where have you been?
That's a fair question. Just having a rest.
Just a couple of days, if that's okay. Not to be confused with Cabal Dev. Always get that.
Just having a Cabal Dev.
I mean, to underscore where we're at, last night received several text messages, putting my phone away at this time. Several text messages going, "Are you watching McSweeney, bud? Are you watching this?" I was like, "No, I'm watching How to Make Gravy."
How was it?
Binge. Really good. I really liked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked the themes,
Okay.
but it wasn't so. It wasn't so iconic as to infect the purity of the song. So I think everybody wins. There's no integration here whatsoever. I just liked it. But this is where we are.
Okay.
In Christmas. Now, he goes, there's something else I want to share with you.
Okay.
And the listener out there. And I feel I have to do this from a, look, very conscious, and you're like this as well, not to turn your life into just a window for content.
You haven't got a fucking clue about my life, mate. First and foremost. But yeah.
But I think it's only fair that I share this. It's happened some time ago. I think there's been enough distance between this incident and now. But we're always trying to bring things back to the grassroots, right, of the show and all this sort of stuff.
For authenticity purposes. The
other day I had the privilege of walking my dog, Florimo. And I venture to a few different places to walk the dogs. So, there's nowhere in particular this is happening. Doesn't matter. But in the course of walking my dog, I was on the phone. I have to say, for context, so I was at a local ground. There was a couple of grounds there. It was a Friday, and I was on the phone. It's neither here nor there, but I was in a bit of a stinker, mood wise, which matters.
Okay,
and not proud of it. Of that, but that's just a fact. It's a fact of my life at that time.
Yeah,
and people have been there. Anyway, I'm on the phone, and I've got Flo. A lot of people seen Flo on the show.
Friend of the show.
Small dog, Florimo,
right.
Also relevant.
And
I'm just walking, not thinking about anything. Just on the ground, and next thing I hear, "Oi, get your dog off the pitch.
Now we're talking.
So for context, Florimo had strayed, I guess, or just walked a couple of small footprints, I guess. Well, not footprints, a couple of small steps on the turf wicket, which was in a state of like preparation. There was a little bit of some material around. I can't really remember. Maybe a roller was there or something. There was no sign of a curator, and I turned around and there's a bloke about 70 metres coming out of the shed, the curator's shed, irate as anything.
Yeah.
And it was just the way that he spoke to me.
Right.
Like, get your dog off the deck.
Yeah, yeah.
And I yelled back in my state. I just yelled back, if you don't want me, if you don't want me on it, rope it off.
Just a couple of blokes going toe to toe now. Oh, so the deck wasn't roped off. There was no cordoning of the rope of the deck.
It wasn't roped off. And like, look, I could. This is not a story about him, really. It was upset. Just a guy trying his best. He's got the shits. It's more of me.
Yeah.
And I don't want that deck. Rope it off. He's like, get your dog off the deck. And so I'm like, this is all right. I did something quite petulant at this point, which I'm not proud of but again, just sharing.
Yeah.
So I'm standing on the square. Like, it's a sunny day as well, like, deck looks fine.
Yeah. Hadn't been wet.
I hadn't meant for Flo to walk on. I don't want to, like, ruin anyone. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, it's my park.
Yeah,
Whatever. I'm not
yeah,
like that,
I pay rates.
Yeah, I was pretty close to saying that. But it's the way he yelled at me. So I'm standing on the square, and then I did this really childish thing where I like sort of feigned to walk on the deck, like I sort of head faked it. Not proud.
Sort of drop the shoulder.
Sort of.
Yeah, feigned to go one way. Sold him.
He's like trying to stare me down. I'm like, what's doing? Like, is the dog so small as well? It's not like he's taken a shit on the deck or done anything like materially that's going to damage it.
Or you've got like a horse dog with like clip clopping its way down.
Yeah, I'm not on a fucking police horse. Anyway, and after I sort of faint to go on the deck, he runs back into his shed. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Yeah. And he comes out with, I kid you not, he comes out with a 7-foot stick with 2 prongs coming off the end. So basically a trident. And he starts coming towards me.
Wow, Jesus.
And I'm like, oh, here we go. And like, he's a senior aged man.
Okay.
Like I've not been in a fight in my life, but I'm like, I'm in a bad mood as well. So he's coming towards me.
Yeah.
I walk towards him and he's like, it's dickheads like you why I don't curate anymore. And I'm like, but you are curating. Like the shits. And he's like, and I was going, if you don't want me on it, rope it off.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I've been preparing this wicket for days. I'm like, my dog's footprints aren't going to make it come off the straight. And then he's like, oh, your cricket, do you? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. It's fucking Larry David. It was not a good scene. It was not a good scene, but and then he said, I bet you're from the eastern suburbs. And I was like, what does that mean? I'm from Sydney, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Even worse.
Yeah, exactly. And like, look, I'm just, the guy, he's probably having a bad day too. And he's just, he's just a member of the public not respecting his space. And so this isn't I definitely ashamed that, just the lack of control of mood. But I also recognize, I believe it needs to be shared because you're just talking about an exchange with a groundsman trying his best, and he's probably, I think groundsman probably can yell at members of the public, and the members of the public will probably go away. But which is the bit where he said like, oh, I think you cricket, do you? I'm like, oh yeah, a little bit. Fucking idiot. Me, that is.
Yeah. So tensions are high.
Well,
exactly. It's a hot summer.
Yeah,
it's a hot summer.
Yeah. So that's just a little exchange I felt needed to be shared. Good luck to him. Good luck to the man, and good luck to my moods at that time.
It was 36 played 25 the Saturday afterwards.
I definitely went to play cricket the next day just to see.
Both teams rolled on an unplayable deck.
That's right. It was just a paw print on a length.
And the blokes were good enough to keep hitting it as well. Time after time.
That's right. Yeah.
High skill. Well, Pezza, as the summer rolls on, we really enjoy Emmett's contribution to TGC. Stories like that, Wasted Saturdays, Patreon chat, Ask TGCs come on Friday as well, and a live show as well. I just want to shout out the live show. We had Matthew Hayden in Brisbane on Wednesday night, and it was as red hot as you'd imagine. It was everything you'd expect, and perhaps even more.
That's what we've wanted from Queensland for a couple of years.
Yeah,
it was a steamy night, and it was steamy inside.
Oh, they fucking gave it to us.
Oh yeah,
standing O's.
Yeah, for DOS.
Mostly, yeah. But I sort of felt like, yeah. Anyway,
DOS is doing a caricature of DOS.
Yeah,
and it was very welcomed.
Yes.
At one point, he put his alligator skinned boots on the table while he was talking.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely tremendous. Stuck around for Ask TGC as well.
Yeah.
A lot of questions came his way, and he just fired them back. It was just fantastic.
It was like batting with DOS at Gully.
That
was essentially the mood that he brought. And
he hammered us.
It was very welcome. Anything we said, he was hammering us to the delight of the crowd.
Hopefully a memorable night for all that were there in Brisbane. I think a lot of people enjoyed it anyway, especially the pay pigs on Patreon who, obviously kept the lights on here in this program. So Ricky Ponting next up, Pezza at the M-More. That sold out weeks ago. We're still getting messages per day about any tickets. There are no more tickets. That's completely 100% sold out. I think we're actually probably past capacity given, our personal requests for trying to get friends and family. But, whatever. Anyway, and then, of course, we go to Melbourne after that. There are still tickets available for the January 9 show at the Forum. Tickets are available at greycricketer.com or via Ticketek. There's also a link in the description either on YouTube or your audio platforms for that show as well. So please do come along. It's Thursday, January 9. Few tickets available for that show, but it will sell out. So please do get in quick. It'll be right at the end of the Sydney Test match. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful series and a great summer. So thank you to everyone that's already been to the shows in Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, and all the people that have written in for Wasted Saturdays who have contributed via Patreon. Got behind us there, patreon.com/Grey Cricket. If you want to support TGC, get behind us and, keep us charging forward throughout the Christmas period and the festive new year indeed, Pezza. But something you want to say about Wasted Saturdays?
Wasted Saturdays, yeah. Just a shout out to, I can't remember who wrote this in, but it was, hey boys, went to a Victoria versus Queensland game last Saturday, Arvo. And after getting a 3-for in the second session, Sam Elliott jumped the fence and sat down for a chat with his parents and Misso instead of going to the rooms with the boys. He also said, my mate also saw Matt Renshaw buying a Powerade at the bar after getting out. Felt like a wasted Saturday.
That's all authentic once again.
Exactly.
Where else are you into that kind of commentary? Nowhere else, and probably rightfully so. Anyway, that's it. All right, let's talk about the cricket now, Pezza. Let's do the cricket show now. So, big news in. Obviously, people have already discussed this, but Nathan McSweeney dropped. Sam Konstas looks like he's going to be the fourth youngest ever Australian to play Test cricket for Australia. If he does get the nod, which it does seem that way. So, first, I'll give you first reaction to Nathan McSweeney being dropped and Konstas, likely being selected. What are your thoughts? Do you like it?
If I'd woken up in the morning and they just retained McSweeney, I would have been like, fair play. There's about 7 blokes that could be dropped in the Australian side, right now. Mm-hmm. And they've clearly, I think the approach of the selectors and McDonald and Cummins and stuff is like from in AFL terms, which is the terms you must put it in, is like this is premiership window stuff. Mm-hmm. They're putting all the eggs in the basket of the blokes who they feel have done it before, even if a couple of them are batting like their eyes are painted on.
Yeah.
Right. So McSweeney, with the corporate tide, last in, first to leave. Right? Yeah. I got heaps of thoughts on it. So what I like, Konstas is funny. Konstas is, it's a funny selection because a couple of his comments since being selected is that he just hasn't been watching too much of Bumrah.
Perfect.
Which I just think that's an attitude to unify the nation. Mm-hmm. Like the old boy sitting back thinking, now we're talking. Someone who's going to come in and throw a few punches himself. Mm-hmm. I'm not even looking at Bumrah.
I'm not scared of anybody.
I just think that one of the funniest things about all of this stuff, where like these selection conversations have come down to like picking blokes at the right time, picking blokes who are like not in the right position,
right.
Succession planning, what the selector wears, where he sits, who he shakes hands with,
yes.
who he talks to and how much he talks to them.
Yeah.
Is there a shattered masculinity going on?
Yep.
Are old blokes triggered that the selector now talks to guys and they want people to talk to them?
Yep.
I think the biggest thing to come out of all of this is that like last night Nathan McSweeney hit 75 red and won the game for the Heat. And at the end of the day, all like the only thing proved out of any of this is that Jasprit Bumrah doesn't play for the Adelaide Strikers.
Not yet.
Like Konstas has hit this kind of stirring, dazzling, classy 50 off 20 for the Thunder. And it's like, this boy's ready to go.
Yeah.
McSweeney comes back and sits and hits 75 red off 50. It's almost like there's just a guy that no one can fucking play.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like that is the part that's left out of this. It's like, mate, it is deck chairs on Titanic stuff. 38, 19, 25. Doesn't matter how fucking old you are.
Yeah.
It's just this bloke can't be played.
Yeah.
He's too good.
Yeah, I've also really enjoyed that sort of dichotomy of people really, calling for the selectors to make some hard calls, mate. And they make perhaps the hardest call. It's like, that's a bit harsh.
Bailey can't win.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
Like he's too close to the players, can't make the calls. Makes the hard calls, wrong calls.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah. So I would have done. Yeah.
I mean, but like Bailey has made hard calls.
Totally, yeah.
Like he dropped head. They dropped head in India Test matches. They dropped Alex Carey in the ODI World Cup. They dropped Mitch Starc in the T20 World Cup against Afghanistan. Now a couple of those selections sucked, so he was too harsh. I mean, there's something going on in respect to the criticism of George Bailey in particular, where it's like, the only consistency in the criticism is his approach to selection, like what he wears, where he sits, how he does it.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any consistency around who he has dropped unfairly and who he has kept unfairly. And for all of the criticism around retaining older players, etc., I don't see any thread of anybody explaining what he should have done alternatively. And if you want to say that he should have succession planned sooner, tell us when he should have done that and who he should have changed.
Yeah.
I'll give you Warner. I was saying that.
Yeah.
But who else? I mean, the root cause of what's going on in Australian cricket and the retention of older players is around the systemic issues with first-class cricket and that there are no obvious replacements coming through.
I think that last bit is particularly pertinent in the fact that they went with McSweeney, and we know he's not an opener, and he's been given the most difficult test in the history of anyone debuting in Test cricket ever. In that he's had to face Bumrah, and not just Bumrah, he's had to face him at certain times, including the innings where he batted quite nicely when they had to chase 20 or whatever in the Adelaide Test match. Even then, it's like he's got nothing to gain by scoring 12, but he apparently had everything to gain, at the same time. And they probably feel like Konstas has come sort of out of nothing this summer. No one was talking about Konstas at the start of this Sheffield Shield season.
He's virginal.
He's virginal. And then he comes in and he does this thing and he scores this, the Prime Minister's 1100 against this Indian side. And then he does this thing where he breaks a record for the Sydney Thunder. And I know it's just the Thunder and out at Homebush or whatever. Was it Blacktown? But it's like, they probably feel like they've got this thing, and it's like, no, I think it's just this series is so valuable. Let's just try this thing because the other thing is not really working out.
What do you lose? Because there's no runs coming out of the other thing.
Exactly. So you can't
chuck a new thing in that's been that's puritanical, virginal. It is undamaged by Bumrah.
Everyone knows that Nathan McSweeney is my best friend, so I'll defend him to the hilt. Right?
He's our last guest on the pod.
Exactly, and so I think the way he spoke proves in many ways that he is someone of very level head and probably has aspirations of leadership and certainly a long career
Mate, he'll
in
be
the
back.
Australian Senate.
He'll be back for sure.
No question. I think that, but you can't. At the same time, you can't say like, he would have been good to go for a couple of 50s in the last 4 innings of this Test series. I mean, like no one's can feasibly and realistically say that. And here's also another problem because I didn't necessarily see this coming. But because I was saying geez, Khawaja needs some runs. Now everyone needs runs. But I think they've got a problem with Khawaja, for instance, where they'll need him in Sri Lanka. like because he'll open the batting because he plays spin so well and has a good record against spin. I don't think either Konstas or McSweeney will open the batting in Sri Lanka because they'll be facing spin from the first ball, just about, I suspect. So
I think they're opening with Zampa.
And if you and if you drop Khawaja, you're ending his career. Now that's so you know. I think it's once again. I think it's at least an ambitious move. I think they've got this young thing, and it's like, well, this feels like a good time to pick someone because he's scoring heaps of runs and it looks good, and he's already done it against this side, and you know, it's but I don't think you'd be like, fucking hell, McSweeney's definitely scoring runs in the next innings, you know.
Mate, it's about Bumrah. I mean, no, we don't even know how good anybody is because of this guy. I mean, look at the scores Australia are racking up if you take Bumrah away from the scores. I mean, are guys in form? I don't even know.
Yeah.
This bloke just comes on and knocks everybody over.
Yeah.
What was Australia without Bumrah's figures in the first innings at the Gabba?
They're still batting.
Were they like 2 for 400 or so? I mean, it's
a joke.
It's insane. Which just speaks to how good the bloke is.
Right.
I mean, look, McSweeney is hard done by. It is a very tough call because although he doesn't have bulk runs next to his name, he did face deliveries. Mm-hmm. He did, affect the game plan that they were trying to affect. I wouldn't be surprised if the selectors felt as though because Konstas is somewhat undamaged by Bumrah, whereas McSweeney did by the end, feel a little bit like a sitting duck, like other guys have as well, that Konstas may be able to throw a punch or two, but it's like, he just, the smart money is just on the fact that there's just this great bowler. And if you want to then make the conversation about whether Khawaja should have been dropped instead of McSweeney, I mean, that's fair enough as well.
Sure.
I just think that the team has been pretty clear for a long time that it trusts the guys who have done it before. I mean, Khawaja, as far as I understand, is still the ICC Test Player of the Year. Now, I know, you're probably bending a few things there to make that comment, but, I don't think it's unreasonable to think, look, guys have pulled it out of the fire before. Now, as to your comment about going to Sri Lanka and stuff, I'm not sure what the temperature will be if Australia does concede one of the next 2 tests, because if they do that, they don't get the trophy. And I wonder if at that point, if the older players, particularly a 38-year-old, and Paul Khawaja's had to turn 38 at this time.
Yeah,
right?
that's a turning.
He's just turned 38. So
happy birthday, was he? Oh, no. Please don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah. I think that, I do think the mood may shift on that kind of thing. And I think that's not unfair. I think if you're 38, you're basically on the hook to deliver regularly. Otherwise, you should just be trying new guys. I mean, if they lose the next test match and the series is effectively gone, I think and so is the World Test Championship, just about. I think that you may as well start the process. But so really, I think there's a couple of guys in the team, older guys, who are eyeing off the fairy tale Ashes departure. And I think they've earned the right to do that. However, I do think that it's subject to some extraordinary performances in the next 2 games, which... And I'm backing him. I'm backing him in, by the way. I think the boys are very, very determined to win this series, and I think they've come through before. I think it's really difficult against Bumrah. I think the MCG deck's going to be really difficult as well, and it's going to be an away match. But that just means the stage is set. Can they deliver?
Absolutely salivating, licking me lips and me chops at the same time. Here's the harsh thing about McSweeney, right? Is that if they win the game in Brisbane, he's probably still playing because they're probably unlikely to drop a guy that's been part of a winning side. And I agree with you in that regard that Australia are more likely of the 2 teams to win either the next 2 test matches because let's be right, India have been not much short of garbage the last 2 tests.
Mate, they've been carried by 1.5 blokes.
It is extraordinary what Bumrah has done to keep his side in the series at all, and the fear that he has created amongst the top 7 batters, or basically the entire side, is extraordinary. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before in a home test, especially. But there are obviously so many questions around India's setup, and they've got their own issues. But yet, what happened at the back end of the Gabba when Australia were sort of trying to go for something, but there was no time and there was rain, and maybe India never turned up.
It's been awesome, by the way.
It's confusing, but India seemed to have rested or like wrestle back control of like the momentum of, because like Australia pumped them in the third Test match. I mean, India won the toss and bowled, and then Australia made 400 on a very, very difficult deck to bat on, thanks to, of course, an extraordinary innings from Travis Head. But
Smudge.
But at the yes,
less acknowledged.
Yes, that's right.
Less fluent.
Yes, that's right. That was very impressive as well, to be fair. You know, like, but yeah, it comes out the other side of like day 6 of the Brisbane Test, and it's like, geez, Australia are struggling, aren't they? But it's like, but they've hammered them.
But the last thing that happens is the only thing that's happened.
Incredible.
Do you understand?
Incredible.
So, yeah.
But that's down to Bumrah with a new pill in the third innings of the game.
Well, mate, I've heard like I've heard several people, quite credible people, absolutely convinced that that after in the fourth innings in the third innings of the game when Australia batted for a second time and found themselves 5 for shit, that they strategically like threw the bat to try and look as though that was the plan all along.
Right.
So there was a politically motivated declaration to avoid pressure or scrutiny, which just goes to show Cummins is playing 4D chess out there.
Boys, I think we have to clear here. This is no good. The optics of this are no good.
But just again, it's fuel to the fire stuff. I mean, it just goes to show how good the series has become.
I mean, it's exciting though. You know, I mean, we said the same thing about McSweeney coming in. You know, it was an ambitious selection given the other candidates available to fill that spot. It hasn't worked out, but it's an interesting one with McSweeney specifically because obviously Australia's missing Cam Green. So his next opportunity to come into the middle order might be, well, I mean, it could be anyone to be fair. Mitch Marsh, perhaps, most likely to come in.
There's a few places in the spot in the team coming up in the next 24 months.
True, but if you look at, say, I don't think Smith has made any intimations about retiring, and Marnus is certainly, supposing the peak of his career. He's only 30. There's probably that Mitch Marsh spot because, well, hang on, what does that look like? Because Green's got to come back in.
We're going to keep talking about new players so long as everyone in the top 6 in Australian cricket, both the international and the national team, averages about 25 on these decks with these balls, which is awesome.
It does look hard.
Yeah. But then you talk to other people who go, it's just a little extra lacquer.
Yeah. But do you like the rawness of someone like, because when we spoke to Bukowski, for instance, after he played in the last series, he debuted at the SCG, and we asked him at the time, just like, what was it like? Boomer running in, and he was like, it was just like PlayStation. It's like a video game.
You knew exactly what to say.
Yeah.
Konstas has been the same. I'm not looking at much of it. He's just bringing his personal coach down to over the net.
So I kind of like that he hasn't thought about it at all, and he said like he's made some plans or whatever, but like, I'm good for it.
You're picked. I mean, how good this is like young teen fan fiction though. I'm a 19-year-old debuting on Boxing Day, Series 1-1, 100,000 sellout, 40-degree temperature, and the greatest fast bowler in the history of time is coming to bowl at me. I'm not thinking about it.
When is it?
I'm going to go about my process.
What day is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a process guy.
Watto winning the inner battle.
Right.
So this is really Watto's winning the inner battle versus Bumrah.
I see. Yeah.
How do you not think about Bumrah that much? Go to bed, just count Bumrah coming into bowling.
But maybe you don't
like
when you're
sheep.
19.
True.
I mean, McSweeney's 25. He's seen too many things.
That's right.
He's lived too much life.
His prefrontal cortex is too developed.
Yeah. Konstas is like he hasn't even had a gap year yet, Been on a Kentucky tour, throwing shots down his neck.
This is a problem. This is a problem with having too many older blokes in the side.
Yeah.
The brain's too far developed. Mm-hmm. We need more ignorance.
100%.
If anything.
100%.
Youthful exuberance.
Yeah.
And then in their autobiography 15 years later go, I guess I didn't care that much when I was younger. Oh, yeah.
It's perfect.
So you're inking him in for 100 already? I am.
I'd take match total 65, both innings, as if you wouldn't take that. I said before the series, you take averaging 30 opening the batting in Australia. I maintain that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
look, Australia is just creaky as fuck owing to age. I mean, if there should be any, to me, the major and like fair critique of selections at the Gabba, I think, should focus on the Hazlewood selection for me. Now, you have to take at Australia's word that he's pinged a calf. He's pinged one before, which is to go with a side. But you've taken in a guy to the game who you can't argue was more fit than Scott Boland. You couldn't say he's 100% fit, right? Now, easy to say in retrospect. But you see the problem they've got. They bring Hazlewood in going, well, he'll be insured by an all-rounder. But the all-rounder who is meant to provide insurance overs can't bowl because his body is too frail.
Yep.
But he's in the side as Australia's best performed bat to provide insurance against the top four who can't score runs. Yep. Half of which, two of which are quite old themselves. So whichever way you look at it, there's just holes in the team.
Mate, I think it's a really interesting one. And again, like, we're spending so much time talking about the Australian side when, like, India is equally as creaky, if not even more so. It's obviously hard to play away from home as well. Let's factor that in. But
not this game.
I'm going to say it. Am I? Well, let's find out. Bo Webster plays at the MCG. Because I think for that exact reason. And I think because as well it's going to be so hot.
For?
Marsh.
Oh, okay. You think, they make the change.
Because I think it's going to be so hot. And Nathan Lyon's hardly bowled. I think Nathan Lyons hasn't been quite the same player since he hurt his Achilles at the Ashes. He's struggled to get some overs in. But, like, the problem with Hazlewood going down again was that, like, Australia were down 2 bowlers because Marsh can't bowl, right? So they were trying to win a test match with 3 bowlers and Nathan Lyon, who has hardly bowled. So it really did feel like Cummins and Stark had to take 16 wickets of which were available at the time. Which is, Nathan Lyon's a great bowler. But if it's going to be 40 degrees and they lose a toss again and they have to bowl, that's a heavy workload for guys, especially with Boland as well, who has only played 3 first-class games now this summer. That feels risky. And Mitch Marsh just can't bowl. And as well, look, he's probably been teetering a little while and it just hasn't worked out for him in this series with the bat. So I think Bo Webster's almost got to play for the overs that he would provide. Do I think that's actually going to happen? I'm leaning towards it, yeah.
Depends on the deck. I mean, the MCG's been honking for a couple of years, and it's the only word that we're allowed to use now to describe a seaming deck at the MCG.
How good's Barrel going to be, though?
We watched him in the Australia A game, and he at the MCG live, and he just looked like a fucking nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Just banging it into that deck and extracting life out of it like no other. Except Boomer, who hasn't played on it yet. But but that's all right. You just got to walk at him.
Yeah, I think. That's right. Yeah.
So
we've got a 19-year-old plaything.
They may take the view that it will be a 3-day, 4-day game. I can tell you with the weather now, there is no sign of rain around. Weird that, but yeah. So they may take the view that they need Marsh's run still, and that if that the 20 wickets will be taken in a manner that from whichever side that will not be conducive to like days in the dirt. So it just depends on the deck. I think they are very inclined to, like, where possible, trust the guys that have done it before. But, like, I tell you what, for this team, it is, and it has been before, but, like, it is all on the line for the Aussie team now because there's a lot of people for a lot of reasons with knives sharpened and more, you can't obviously run away from age. So they will be hoping, these guys, that they can get the job done to give themselves a shot at the next one, which should be a little bit easier. But if they can't get it done as a team, then, you're entitled to talk about breaking it up and starting again, and there's England licking their chops at facing half a team.
It's funny with Mitch Marsh with his batting specifically. He's obviously in the side to score runs. And he hasn't even got an opportunity to play the expansive shots, which has been so successful for him when he's been on the side. Maybe he's just, I don't know how many times Boomer has picked him up, but like,
Head has, it's just a quality thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose that's right. Travis Head does feel like just in the absolute form of his life, though that has been going on for about 3 years. It feels like at the same time, because he was player of the Ashes last time the Ashes were here, wasn't he? I think he played the series. Yeah. So, he has had some good summers out here. He's obviously won a World Cup final off his own dick against India. So, things have been going pretty good for Travis Head for a while, but like we're just seeing almost like a magnum opus against what we're talking about, the greatest fast bowler of all time in these conditions. So that's also a fairly big difference. But Mitch Marsh, he's also the current AB medalist for his contribution to the side. So, it wouldn't be an easy drop. But I just feel like, it does feel like Australia just missed an opportunity, not through their own fault necessarily. I think they played really well in Brisbane and the rain just took so much time out of the game that they couldn't get anything done. But it does feel like with the dropping of McSweeney I'm now talking about Bo Webster's got to play for the balance of the side. And it just feels like it's so precarious still, even though I still expect in Australia for Australia to win the last 2 games because I think they've got a better side in the conditions. Still feel like that's a missed opportunity, against such a good Indian player.
I mean, Perth aside, Australia has had the upper hand in the cricket for the majority of days and the majority of time. However, if you told somebody before the series that India get to Melbourne and Sydney with a stronghold of fans and more familiar conditions, 1-1, they're biting your arm off for it. Always the arm or the hand.
Yes.
So you can see why India would feel good. Jasprit Bumrah has shouldered the entire load of the nation and our loads. Once again, it's difficult to see some of those Indian players, especially batters, not coming to the party at some point. Can you suppress them for 5 tests? Are things that bad? Don't know. So I could see why India would be buoyed, but by the same token, I could see why Australia's listen, we're outplaying them in cricket. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
And yes, there are guys who haven't performed for us yet, but, let's trust that they will come to the party as they have done before. At the end of the day, it's all just very mouthwatering. But given that India holds a trophy, Australia has more to do than India. India only needs 1 result.
Yeah, that's right.
And they maintain
and they've done it before.
But as you said, mate, I just want to ask you before we get to India, do you I find the constant focus on George Bailey's approach to his job fascinating. It seems to just really irritate people that he prosecutes his role with an approach that is different to what has come before. People seem very irked by the fact that he is close to the players and that he wears a tracksuit and that he shakes opposition hands and that he appears to have a more open, fulsome line of communication with players than selectors in times gone by.
Yeah.
And that criticism doesn't seem to be allied with a solution as to the different selections he should have made, just that he should be doing it differently.
Yep. Here's the thing that annoys me about it. I think, you just said it before, but people are just criticised without offering what they would have done in sticking
what
neck out.
Selections would he have? What if you were able to sit in a box in a suit without an open line to the players, so that when you pick them, you say this is when you get to the airport, and when you drop them, you say bad luck, back of the queue.
Yeah,
what would the Australian Test team look like if Bailey had created that separation or that objectivity? Is Bancroft in the side now?
Yeah.
Is Xavier Bartlett in the side? Has the side been succession planned? Nobody ever seems to be out there saying this is how the team would look different.
Here's another thing as well that annoys me. No one ever prosecutes or goes into the thinking of okay, why did they make that decision?
Yeah.
It's always just that was wrong. Not trying to actually think about why have they made the decision McSweeney and Konstas, for instance. So it's reductive to just say that was wrong, and it proves that there's an issue structurally within the ecosystem of Australian cricket. That's not helpful, because then also the reason people don't then say here's what I think should have happened is you realise the weakness of your own argument sometimes, or the flaws in it. So you can make an argument for any player coming in, but then I suppose you might reveal a crack in that plan that you've just highlighted yourself. So I don't. Here's the problem as well. Geez, they've won everything.
Well, that's where I get to with it. Don't the ends justify the means with George Bailey and this selection team? There would be players in Australian cricket who are aggrieved at being left out of the side, not selected. But the players largely appreciate what they've done, and perhaps that's self-fulfilling because they keep getting selected or whatever. But do the ends not justify the means, given that they have the World Test Championship, they have the ODI World Cup, they fucked up the T20s, admittedly. They kept the urn. They, more than any other team since Steve Waugh and Ponting's era, they've won. So, in the same way that batters and bowlers are judged ultimately with the currency of runs and wickets, selectors surely are judged on wins and losses, of which there have been more than their fair share of wins.
Right.
So shouldn't the conversation be more about what has been good about this, rather than the limitations?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, of course, like any decision. I mean, first of all, every selector ever is criticised for making the wrong decisions. So, and I don't think
it's the dumbest job of all time to take.
That's right, especially being the chairman of it. So I don't even know who the other selectors are. It's just Bailey just doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But.
And in 20 years' time, when they're failing, it'll still be Bailey. Just as it was Trevor Hones for a very long time after he'd retired.
Exactly, yeah. But there is no decision made by a selector which isn't worth prosecuting. But I just find it interesting that no one ever thinks about, well, why did they do that?
Yeah.
Like
I just don't like the cut of this guy's jib.
Because when you start thinking about it, why have they made the decision, you go, okay, I might be able to see that argument. I might not agree with it, but I can see why. But if people are just like, wrong state.
No good. And it's unfair. I mean, sometimes I wonder about the old guard's criticism of Bailey in terms of like whether his intimacy with players is ultimately what they object to most, because I don't know, for whatever reason, at some level did they crave that intimacy and not receive it?
Well, we have heard some stories about players being told by selectors that they've never seen them play. So
I just wonder why some of those guys crave that distance so much. Why it seems to sort of disproportionately offend them that Bailey is aware of the ins and outs of what's happening with the players. I don't understand why it seems to irritate people, to the extent that it does. They just don't like seeing them around the side. I suppose they would say that it gives rise to bias or whatever. But it's like that's fine. Tell us who should be in the side instead then, and who's missing out. But it doesn't. That next bit doesn't seem to come.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah. Oh, well, India's got some issues, right? Rohit.
Oh yeah. I mean, Rohit, Kohli. I mean, Ashwin's obviously retired as well, but
there's nothing going on there with the Ashwin retirement. So thankfully, he was just, as I suggested. I suggested at the time when we it was just hot off the press that he would have done it to do the right thing by his team and to take himself out of the selection frame. And in the weeks since, it's been proved that was wrong.
Right. Okay.
So I think his dad described it as a humiliation.
Yes.
And then Ashwin, to his credit, said please leave my dad alone. He's not media trained, and that's fair enough as well. But I'd suggest that if Ashwin's done it off his own volition, and completely happily, then his father's not describing it as a humiliation.
Probably not.
And one does hear around the traps that he is just like, I'm not going to be the water boy for this team anymore, given my record, and that I probably would be relevant for the next couple of tests. So can't say that's would be particularly stabilising for the team. Or maybe the team's like, good. I mean, mid-series retirement from an all-time great, we're just like, okay, play on.
What's the equivalent there? I mean,
I'm surprised Ali Martin didn't break this story. It's a disgrace what he did.
The equivalent of, Lion retiring in Ranchi or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And be like, oh, okay.
Any questions?
Huh.
Any questions asked about that? Or
Kuhneman's just been rolling that pretty good. It is an interesting one.
But Cummins did present Ashwin with a signed Australian jersey from all players. So is that 1-0 Australia again? Or is it 1-1?
It's 1-1 after
what Rahane did.
Yeah.
The line.
Yeah, when he tried to retire Line.
Well, they pretty much did that series.
After his 100th test. Hey, Jai Richardson also in the squad, Pezza.
Yeah, it's nice.
Nice to see Jai back in and around the group.
He's next cab in terms of
well, they just like the airspeed.
Like
the airspeed.
It's just keeping the old rig on the park.
Yeah, I like that. So we talk about the India team versus Australian media stuff. Now, Indian fans will suggest that this stuff always happens every time they come to Australia. They feel like the Australian media sort of they muckrake, they sort of bring up some sort of controversy to get inside the heads of the Indian players.
They do.
And that's how we try and win test matches. So I don't really see what the issue is.
Yeah, at least we're consistent. But it doesn't happen anywhere else, thankfully.
That's exactly right. So, there's that. But obviously there was this incident at Melbourne Airport where Kohli felt aggrieved by media filming his family. And then it was sort of understood later to be a misunderstanding that they weren't filming his family, and he was also at the airport and they're allowed to film because it's in public space, wasn't a private thing. I would also imagine as well that Kohli finds it extremely difficult when he is traveling with his family to have cameras around and, protecting his family, that sort of stuff as well. So I can see that. Then there's also this other thing about, Jadeja and then Akashdeep only speaking in Hindi at press conferences. I think Jadeja's English is much better than Akashdeep, as I understand it. So there's that. But then, the Australian media feel aggrieved. They've been made to wait for this Indian player, then don't get to ask a question, then he just leaves immediately, and then they feel aggrieved. So I don't know. It's all pretty good, and I reckon interesting for people at home as well. They sort of like this stuff.
Yeah, fans typically love when media starts turning the cameras in on itself and talking about it.
Bit of navel gazing.
Yeah, navel gazing and stuff like that. And this is what you got to understand about the ecosystem. And this is why we play for Australia. Yeah, with the Kohli thing, I have sympathy for like a man thinking that his family has been unfairly involved in something, whether he's correct about it or not. I'd suggest that, I don't know much about the protocol around these things, and from the Australian side, it appears as though they're claiming that's a misunderstanding. I don't think in Australian media culture there's a particular clamour for people to see a player's family. So I have some sympathy for that perspective. But by the same token, I'd imagine that Kohli is pretty well versed in what is and isn't meant to happen as he walks through an airport, because I see a lot of airport shots of Kohli and stuff and don't see his family. So I have some sympathy for him if he believed that something untoward was happening, just as, a father and your children is there. Even if you've seen red mist and got it wrong, I can understand where that might come from or what that's motivated by. But again, neither of us are there, don't know. Hopefully it is a misunderstanding. It occurs to me that there's been a great heady mix of misunderstanding and ego through all of this stuff, and not to trumpet, but both sides bring their own bullshit to this stuff as well. I mean, I'm taking the cues of Bharat, who's like Sundaresan, that is India Sundaresan, who was at these things and was just like, this stuff's completely unnecessary. So I think there's a fuck ton of ego going around.
Yeah.
I do think, on a more macro level, it occurs to me looking at media stuff that neither side does a particularly good job of engaging with the other and engaging with the cultural practices of the other either. I mean that both ways. I don't know how to summarize it, but there probably is some tantrum toys pram stuff from the India side, and by the same token, there's probably some fucking some muckraking bullshit from the Australian side as well. Because even within the media, there's guys at that presser who are been sent from TV who don't really do cricket, but they know how to whip up a storm because that's their job and that makes money. And that shouldn't be news to anybody. And then there's also people who are cricket journos who have the trust and familiarity with BCCI people or whatever who aren't represented by the TV guys. Then you have some toys pram stuff, and there's an India-Australia media game the next day that doesn't take place because there's a boycott happening. There's some India stuff in that, without doubt. Yeah. But, anyone who's saying to you with this stuff, to my mind, that, it's all one way, it's black and white, one party is completely fucked up and the other is just benevolent, altruistic, and simply being gracious hosts, that's also just, way too reductive and oversimplified as well. But also it's gone crime. The other thing I want to say about this, and the most important thing, is that it's gone full crime war, which is good and welcome. And the thing about the reporters at the airport is that they've made the fatal mistake of engaging Kohli in a fight. Yeah. Okay. This is what he's looked for. He's gone looking for it. He's found it. We've been warned about this. Kohli century incoming. He's goaded them into a fight. Yeah. And Australia now must suffer because the fight's been taken.
Fucking hell.
Why did we let him do this?
He's going to be up for it now.
He paraded his children in front of every single camera and said, "Oh, you filming this, eh? Oh, right. And now we've got a fight."
Foolish.
Coats everywhere, both sides.
Anything else you want to talk about that series?
Australia versus India.
Yeah, that series.
Should be a good game.
Just a quick one, sticking with both parties. Champions Trophy news. India and Pakistan are going to play in the UAE in the Champions Trophy on February 23. So previously that was going to be held in Pakistan, but then of course it never was going to be held in Pakistan, and Pakistan were upset by that because it's like, hey, we came to you during the World Cup. I thought we were going to do each other a solid here, a favour. A favour? A fave. And they said, no, wouldn't have thought so. Anyway, UAE, always where the best cricket is, always said that. Champions Trophy, India, Pakistan, Feb 23, UAE. Get your tickets here.
Can't wait.
Better news at home, Pezza. The One-Day Cup, the domestic One-Day Cup has been renamed the Dean Jones Trophy, and the player of the final will be, they'll receive the Michael Bevan Medal. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. I think Dean Jones is a good choice.
His family spoke really, really beautifully as well, the MCG, when it was announced there. So that was really cool. So, yeah, a great
He changed the game. He's a trailblazer for one-day cricket in Australia, short-form cricket. Love it.
100%.
Yeah.
And voted for by the fans. So that's something for the fans as well. Pezza, Boo, we had a great opportunity to speak to Paul Kennedy, ABC journalist, and we'll get to that in a moment's time. Just a 30-minute chat. Really, really interesting stuff. He had some... he has some really fascinating things to say, so I can't wait for you guys to hear that. But just before we get to that, there's a couple of, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might see a couple of shirts on the table here because we have partnered up with Budgy Smuggler, as we often have. But they've got right behind us again. And so TGC, Budgy Smuggler, are doing a limited release of TGC merch. So the TGC themed Budgy Smugglers in two designs, in a sort of a sky blue and a TGC blue. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
And then the TGC shirt, which has our logo on the front of the guy getting bowled, and then on the back, look good, feel good, play good. Touching words from a former Australian captain one time into our microphones. So
thread count on these bad boys is good. This is a good
high
quality t-shirt,
high quality stuff.
And I think look good, feel good, play good is a very important mantra of TGC, as suggested by a former Australian captain as well on the show. So
it's limited time, it's limited stock.
Yeah.
For these items. There is a link in the description if you want to get behind it, but these shirts look fantastic. You can wear them all through the summer. Wear them to the cricket if you go in the next couple of days as well, for the next couple of test matches. But it's budgysmuggler.com.au, and then, I'll just say it, /pages /the-grade-cricketer-first-access. See? That's why I need to click the link in the description. That's what it'll be. At budgysmuggler.com.au, or you can just search Budgy Smuggler and TGC collaboration, and you should be able to find
merch, t-shirt, look good.
You know how to use the internet. Anyway, it's limited time, limited stock. You're going to get first access if you go to that website. Look good, feel good, play good, the shirts, and then the two different styles of Budgy Smugglers. Once again, thanks to Budgy for getting behind TGC, and indeed the fans out there. All right, Pezza, all interviews throughout this season, this summer, are brought to you by Ponting Wines, pontingwines.com.au. Now, the winner has been chosen for the case of Ponting Wines that we announced on our socials last week. That's already been done and dusted. Thank you, gentlemen, that got behind that little campaign. Now, if you want a Ricky Ponting signed bat, which I have behind me, if you want to look at the, if you're watching on the video, that is a signed bat by Ricky Ponting. The entries close on Boxing Day, last ball of Boxing Day. And if you go to pontingwines.com.au, use the code GETAFEW. You're also going to get 20% off full price wines with that code. But
so
you also
buy some wine at Ponting Wines. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're going to go into the draw
automatically
to win this signed bat from Punter.
Use the code GETAFEW.
That's right.
Again, famously. It's what he used to say to blokes who are older than him when he was playing for Tasmania.
When he was just a team thing.
He was honestly just in the team at 18, 19.
Yeah.
Someone would be cock a hoop about making 40. I'd get a few today, did you?
That's the kind of safe within the Australian setup right now.
Exactly.
Kill for that right now. I don't know if Konstas has that level in him, but I guess we'll find out.
It's a good start from Konstas to say I haven't been watching much of Boomerang.
I've been watching, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's it? Boomerang?
Well.
To some. To his teammate. Anyway, yeah, pontingwines.com.au. Use the code GETAFEW. You're going to go into the draw to win that signed bat. And at the same time, you're going to get 20% off the full price wines at that website. All right, here he is right now. Here's Paul Kennedy.
A man about whom my wife said this morning, say hello to him for me. Never met. Thanks. But I understand. I actually understand that. He's been deep diving the influence of Australia-India relations these last few years with great documentary work, great print work, all for the ABC. He was also the first guy to have us on breakfast TV 9 years ago. And left me with a souvenir, I might have stolen this, of a Post-it note, which was his preparation for the interview that simply had 3 dot points, Rig Circuit Champ. So a great pleasure to welcome not just an alpha, but a thoughtful alpha, the most dangerous of them all. Paul Kennedy, another PK on the show. Welcome to the Great Cricketer.
Unbelievable to be here. Yes, haven't you come a long way since then?
Not really.
Not really.
We're still doing the same stuff.
I still remember reading that book. My cousin put me on to you guys. We just used to quote lines from it. And it's good to have you on TV back then. There was News Breakfasts, believe it or not, did not have a large audience back in the day.
Oh, well, that's not what we were told. Oh, right.
I thought you might have picked it up by the size of the studio, but I think both organisations or both productions have grown since. So News Breakfast took off, and you blokes have as well.
9 years ago is like, I don't know, just passage of time stuff, but like it's 9 years ago. Fuck.
Yeah. And I just love the way that you described, local cricket. I called it local cricket, but I've learned a lot more about it since my kids have gone through. So basically, I just spend all summer watching cricket.
Yeah,
not quite understanding the nuances as you two do, but just observing the weird world of cricket.
Are you happy about that? You seem a bit like I just watch it. I'm not sure that's good or bad thing.
And you want to keep it at a bit of a distance as well because it's weird. That's what I'm picking up.
I buy a new chair for Christmas and go and sit at these far-flung places, watch cricket. And,
Are we talking Bunnings chairs?
Yeah,
nice.
Something cheap. Lasts me 12 months.
You've got sporting pedigree though, Paul. Like, footy types are going to respect that you spend a lot of time in the TAC Cup, the VFL. Doyen down at Seaford Football Club, Frankston. Generally, speaking, like footy's your native love, right?
Footy was my thing. I played cricket when I was a kid, but I gave up when the cricket final started to clash with footy pre-season games. And if you're picking a footy pre-season game over cricket finals, it's time to give cricket away. And then I got back into it. A few years ago, I started playing with my kids. When you turn 12 or 13, you can play in the seniors. So I played some lower grade games with the kids. And got back into it and started just trying to hit sixes.
Nice.
And then, just imagine how good I'd be if I kept playing all the way through.
Yeah, right. So you
would have been a star.
You came back to play like as a wizened man, and you think, because of my life experience, I'm now going to have worked the game of cricket out.
Yeah.
Like, have you been a better player returning? No, because that's usually the truth.
That's how it is in theory.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I say to myself, the exact same advice I'd give to my kids, which is don't go out, hit the ball along the ground, treat the bowler with respect.
Right.
But then something happens some old bloke could come in and bowl some medium pace, and just as he's about to let the ball go, I think, fuck this. I've got to hit this guy into the car park. So,
It's very Hodgie-esque.
And your son's watching at the other end going, that's not what that, that's not what you taught me.
I've batted with the boys, and one day we had a good stand, put on a lot. Young bloke was 13, and he was counselling me in between overs, saying, Dad, just stay here, settle down. I'm like, I'm a bit fucking bored, mate. might be time to get on with it, but he was counselling me. Because my wife's family is, they have got a good cricket pedigree, so the kids have got wiser heads telling them about cricket.
Can I ask you, like, playing with kids? I don't have kids, but I imagine is it a wrestle between like wanting to show the boys, Dad's got it, Dad's a bit of an athlete, or at least was, in his prime, and also like protecting your kids from the harshness of the most fuck sport possible? I
guess. But if I came back to it when I did in my 40s, I'm realistic about how shit I am.
Okay.
But, and you want to protect them, but then the more you watch your kids play, the more you understand. It's almost, it's not quite the watching the test stuff, but you've worked out that maybe they'll make runs one every 4 or 5 innings, and you sort of get used to how it all works.
Yep.
You're not going to make runs. And then you say to yourself, well, they're learning life's lessons along the way. Yeah. And try not to criticise them too much on the way home.
You'd want to protect your kids from sledging as well. But do the fielders know when father and son at the crease?
Yeah, actually, that when I did bat with, I batted with two of my sons.
Right.
It becomes a personality thing. So if someone sledges my kid, or even makes mention that they're dotting up,
Right.
I'll be like, if he bowls, I'm going to make him pay.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
I get super aggressive against the guys who.
Oh, it's good. It's tribal.
Yeah.
I can't imagine like playing cricket with my son and someone saying, I mean, my children are 6 and 4, to be fair. But if like somebody said,
How many runs
when
you
they're
got?
playing Woolworths Blast on the weekend,
Dad, can I bat?
should
Shut
see
up.
me. Yeah, that's right. I'm at non-strikers end. Just dot them. Yeah.
I'm seeing like a beach ball today.
I can't imagine the red mist you'd feel if somebody said something about your child.
It's just the same thing if you're in the supermarket and someone says something to your kid. You're
Right,
like,
right.
Don't fucking talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if then they come on to bowl, it's it's payback.
Oh, that's great.
That's good. Listen to the way you
great.
say it
But
as well.
cricket's it's as you know, it's full of life lessons.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Kids will get send-offs and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Toughens them up, and then they either quit or keep playing and just sort of regret it constantly.
Well, I do like, as part of why I wanted to have you in, because you are a great chronicler of like cultural stories and, particularly the like masculinity overlay as well.
Yeah,
But you've been doing that for a couple of years when it comes to cricket in India and cricket in Australia. And before we get into your contemporary work, where you're talking about the rise of South Asian juniors in cricket and how that might save the game here. A couple of years ago, you did a documentary exploring the parallel lives of Don Bradman and Sachin Tendulkar, and it's available on YouTube as far as I understand as well now. But it's an awesome doco. You went to India, you met Sachin, you interviewed him, you explored their lives in parallel, what was similar, what was different. Are you able to, for those who haven't seen it or across it, just kind of give a synopsis of what that was like?
Yeah, it was really it's one of those projects you do in journalism where you expect to have problems along the way, and it was a sort of big idea to compare Bradman and Tendulkar, not to see who's better, because that would be sort of pointless and problematic. But
and it's an easy answer as well. So
that's right. Yeah, so
there's no point; it's already solved.
But I did think whether maybe the Indian audience would argue that Tendulkar was better than Bradman. But anyway,
I can confirm that when we were in Bangalore at our live show,
Yeah.
I think we said something about Bradman being the best, and they started chanting Sachin, and then we started abusing.
I thought they were saying Rob Quiney. Very confusing. And niche.
So once I had the concept, I had a great producer, Ben Knight, and it was basically a partnership. We thought, how can we tell this story? And Ben had the great idea of looking at the short take. It was Bradman talking to Ray Martin and saying that this kid plays like me. So back in the 90s. And so that became the centre point for everything that we did with the story. So we reached out and we're asking the question, why did Bradman say that about Tendulkar and no one else? What else was he looking at? Was it character? Was it fame, unusual fame, all the rest of it? So then we explored that. We reached out to Sachin's management, and that was really easy. It was a yes from them. We liked the idea. We're interested in you talking to us about it. So we went to Mumbai and we interviewed Sachin Tendulkar, and it turns out Sachin loves Bradman, always has. We went to his house. He's got a dedicated section of Bradman memorabilia, including the photo. So at the MCG, there's a photo of Bradman and Tendulkar. That was sort of choreographed in a way at Bradman's house on his 90th birthday. Shane Warne was there. There's a long story to go with that. But the picture of Bradman and Tendulkar, the deal was there's only 4 photos ever to exist, and one of them's in Sachin's house. And then the most amazing thing happened when we were in Navi Mumbai at a stadium interviewing Sachin. He brought along a letter that his neighbour had from the early 1970s that Bradman had written in reply. So Bradman always returned a mail. He always wrote letters back to people who wrote to him. And so someone living in the same little housing complex as Sachin had written to Bradman, got a return letter. They kept it. So Sachin brought it out and showed us when we were interviewing him, and it was just amazing. And then we whipped out, there's a very cool video of Bradman showing some filmmaker in the 30s all his shots. late cut.
Don't bowl there.
There's
Don't
a
bowl
cut.
there.
Yeah.
You've overpitched.
There's a cut, a front foot cut,
Yeah.
cover drive, goes through all the drives, and pull shot, hook shot, and and we did that with Sachin. We showed him what Bradman did, and we asked Sachin whether he could show us all his shots. And he had a couple of extra shots, and I thought that was pretty cool.
So Sachin's house, I mean, it's like a compound in Mumbai. It's enormous, but you were actually in there.
Yeah, so he wasn't there. We'd interviewed him. He said you can go in and film that little section where the memorabilia is.
Right.
And it's a compound, but it's on a street.
Yeah.
If you put it into your maps, it comes up as Sachin Tendulkar's house. So people come and they stand at the front, they get their photo taken, but it just looks like a normal house. It's obviously a few extra floors.
Yep.
I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 floors. The rumour was that he had a basement with some pretty cool cars in it, but we just saw the part where he had the Bradman memorabilia.
Yeah.
And it was like a staff sort of quarters as well.
Because he seemed really touched when you spoke to him. He seemed really touched by Bradman's sort of acceptance or acknowledgement of him being a great player as well, right? Because he seems quite traditionalist in that regard. He had great respect for what Bradman did for the game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And he's, I think it extends. I think his brother, who's I never met, I didn't meet his brother, but I think his brother loved Bradman as well. So that's
okay.
The Tendulkar family just loved Sir Don, and he was really touched that he went to his 90th birthday, went to his house on his 90th birthday.
Yep.
And it's reciprocated by the Bradman family. They just love Sachin Tendulkar as well. So there was, without going too far into it, there were some neat comparisons around how they dealt with fame, how they how they look at integrity and how they handle themselves. Both of them had their controversies, minor controversies, but nothing big. And both of them have sort of stayed true in retirement post-cricket to the ideals taught to them by their families. And they're both interesting to me. It became almost an examination of what makes a champion. Both of them grew up in households that really valued art, that weren't super sports mad. So Bradman had a lot of music in his family. Sachin actually grew up in a sort of Melrose Place style sort of quad with all these buildings. And that's where all of the writers live. So it's like a writer's residence. His dad was a writer, and so they both sort of come from cultured beginnings. They weren't pushed into the sport, but they were supported, and I love all that part of it too. Many similarities between the two.
Tendulkar's father was a poet, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Bradman grew up around classical music and was a classical pianist himself. Well, people don't know. He actually wrote underneath the Southern Cross I Stand and used to play it in the dressing room. The players would gather around him nude.
Naked, smashing a bin with a stump.
Oh, it
was his finest work.
Bill O'Reilly on percussion.
By the way, have you been to the tank stand? Have you had your
I'd like to
ball up against the tank stand?
Yeah, you did that, right?
We did that. Yeah. So the house, the Bradman house, one of the ones we lived at, it's like a museum.
Yeah.
We've talked about wanting to have a Bucks there.
Yeah.
It's got a backyard.
Well, my Bucks is coming up, so we're looking at getting it on Airbnb.
Well, I think the gentleman is who owned the house is selling it. So
okay,
take all the money you're making from
mate,
from your productions, and
I'm now going to buy Bradman's house. I was on the rent, and now I'm buying it. Okay, I see. Yeah.
But when we were there filming, there was a World Cup on, and a lot of Indian journalists were going from Melbourne to Sydney.
Right.
Some of them go through Bowral and make sure that they pay homage to the to the Bradman Museum. And one of them turned up. He was a great bloke who turned up, and he wanted to see the tank stand. So he came out the back and just loved it. He hugged the tank stand, and he spoke to Don Bradman and said, we're feeling your presence.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah, we filmed the whole thing, and we all had a go. And he was hitting the golf ball against the tank. Well, for some reason he played a pull shot into our cameraman.
And then
he had the same thought process that I do in the logo. He just sort of, fuck this.
He got bored. Dot. Fuck it.
He kept getting dotted up by the tank stand.
And he was told very firmly, don't play square of the wicket.
Got it straight.
That was good fun. But the Bradmans were great too. They the Bradman family, obviously very secretive and had not secretive but private.
Yes.
And they sort of guard their privacy over the years. For some reason, people have sort of attacked the legacy of Don Bradman, criticised him, even since he died. So they showed a lot of trust in us to tell that story. We went to the house in Holden Street, which is like a museum too, and interviewed John Bradman, Greta Bradman, and it was really good.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Paul, this current Australian team, I want to lead into your contemporary work, talking about the future of Australian cricket and some work you've been doing. This is an old team, the Aussie team. We're constantly evaluating the place of cricket in society, given the surge of infinite entertainment in our pockets. That often leads to concern about future stocks of Australian cricket, particularly when you compare it to India, which is just always, it's just full of talented cricketers with depth who are organising well, and it's just a production line of great cricketers coming out. We often worry about the influence of India's vision for the game of cricket on Australia, but with some work you've been doing, you seem to be suggesting that India or South Asian heritage cricketers may actually be the answer for cricket in Australia into the future.
Yeah, well, if you look at all sports, which I do, participation levels is a big thing. So you need people playing the game if you're going to keep operating as a sport, particularly as a big sport like cricket. And the numbers suggest that South Asian, you just look at migration to Australia, right? So India is a huge part of Australian life now. There's parts of Melbourne where they're new estates, and we went to them to look at this story, particularly out in the western region, some southeast as well, where there's so many families are moving in from South Asia, right? So, and what do? They play cricket. We went to Truganina, which is west of Melbourne, and the western region there. So they're going to play their rep cricket under 12s, under 14s, under 16s in January. That's coming up. They were doing their rep trials, and they were telling me that in that area alone, 8 years ago, they had 160 teams. Now they've got 420 teams. And it's all because of these families that have moved in, had kids. Now the kids are all, 10, 12. The kids are growing up and they're playing cricket. The dads want them to play cricket too. We asked one kid, how much do you love cricket? He said, well, I didn't like it at all. I really wanted to play football, but my dad begged me to play and took me to cricket. And we asked the dad, did you beg him to play? He said, yeah, well, I did beg him to play because they just love the game, right? Yeah. So the stats are that at that under 12 level, it's up near 40% of the kids are from South Asian heritage. Most of them born in Australia, of course. They're all Aussie kids. Yeah. But they've got that background. As you go through the ranks of the pathways, which is what I looked at, rep cricket starts around under 12s, 14s. Once you get to 14s, 15s, 16s, you start to make state teams. So there's now the numbers, but they drop off a little bit, obviously. So there's up to 40% in rep cricket for boys as South Asian heritage.
Yep.
So in January, you go and watch these games, and there's so many Indian, Sri Lankans, Pakistan kids. But once you get up into each level, the numbers go down a little bit, and then you get to the test level. There's 2 Australians with South Asian heritage with national contracts. It's Usman Khawaja and Alana King. So we looked at, okay, why is it not translating to the highest levels yet? The answer is it's going to take time, but Cricket Australia knows that it needs it. And to me, the good comparison is, the best comparison is rugby league, rugby union to a lesser extent, like the Pacifica revolution of rugby league. It's just made it an unbelievable sport, right? So, and it needed it. And some sports haven't got the diversity to have that, future safeguard of just full participation in growing your game. Cricket's it's like a gift for cricket to have all these families of Indian, Sri Lankan, Pakistan heritage, Nepalese as well. And they've got to make the most of it. But at some stage, we'll see that at test level, I guess. But they have to make it work.
Seen some of the fandom of in Nepal, the Nepalese fans. I mean, they are absolutely sick for cricket. It's unbelievable. But
there was a guy from Nepal came and played at Frankston Peninsula in the down our way in the Premier Cricket last year, and I think their Facebook page melted down with the with the new followers they had from Nepal. The guy was there for like 2 weeks, and all of a sudden the whole of Nepal was behind the Peninsula. So
good club.
They love their cricket. They love their cricket as well. The under-19s, I could talk forever, so tell me to shut up.
Go.
The under-19s national championships are on at the moment. And if you look at some of the names, so Vic Metro's got Rayan Farouk, I think he's Pakistan heritage, Gurbir Singh, and Vishwa Ramkumar, who plays for the Australian under-19s team. We profiled him, Vish, who plays out at Dandenong. He's obviously a rising star, played for Australia in the under-19s in India not long ago. And, his whole family from India came to watch. And we met his family here in Melbourne. His dad decided to come to Australia after watching. This is, I can safely say this is before your time, but I remember it. There was something in 1985 called the World Championship of Cricket.
Yep.
India won it.
Is this where Shastri was hanging out of the car?
Shastri was there, dominant. Srikanth, I think, was player of the final. They beat Pakistan in the final. Anyway, Vish's dad watched that as a young man and said, I need to live in Melbourne. I must move to Melbourne. So one day he moved his family to Melbourne. Hazrat Gill is in the Australian under-19s women's team. She plays for Melbourne Stars as well.
She's captain. Captain of the Aussie 19s.
Yeah, that's right. So we interviewed her. Her parents watched there's a Bollywood film that was set in Melbourne where some of the characters dancing. It looks like St Kilda Beach to me, or the Yarra's in there as well. They watched that and said, we've got to come to and live in Australia. So it's happening.
And this is that's a really optimistic frame of where cricket is going and what opportunities exist, particularly within Australia when it comes to India and South Asian influence. Because I do detect among Anglo traditionalists, whether it's England or Australia, that India's rise to power in cricket and the influence that it exudes, is seen by some as a threat. Right? The game's not being played the way that we created it to be played. There's a lot more short form, et cetera, et cetera. But with what you're saying, you're really talking about safeguarding the future. What can...
And making it more interesting.
That's right. But what? So people who play at cricket clubs who listen to this, I think there are some, might you'd hope so. Might want to ask themselves what they can do to better orient their clubs to ensure that those cultural barriers that, say, Khawaja speaks about, are removed, to ensure that some of that participation from junior level actually flows through to senior level.
Yeah, I think Cricket Australia's got the biggest job. So I would say if Cricket Australia they've got a plan to increase the number with state contracts from like 4% to 8% for South Asian heritage in the next 5 years. Well, you're kidding. If it's not way more than 8% in 5 years' time, you're not doing your job. So they need to work that out. Obviously, Cricket Australia, and I know that they are putting a lot of effort into it. Barrett Sundaresan was on our program. He's one of the ambassadors for Cricket Australia. He's really hopeful that things are happening. James Allsop's an interesting guy. So he's a chief of cricket at the moment. He told this story about how he identified Tanveer Sanger as a 15-year-old in a school game. Sanger wasn't on any pathways program, but he saw him bowling leg spin and he heard the fizz of the ball. So he helped bring him in, and he's got a New South Wales contract now. My question for the people running cricket is how many more of those kids are out there who are from not rich families. They might live an hour or an hour and 20 away from the major cities. They don't go to private school. How many of those talented kids can you find to get into the system and help and support and develop? So I think that's the big thing, is to break the structures that they have. Some sports, including my great love of Aussie rules, is sort of heading towards this private school model where all the players get drafted out of private schools and all that sort of stuff.
No good.
Cricket's got to reject that
They
and look for these kids
in
from the suburbs.
with scholarships, right?
That
seems to be what happens. And if you're a parent and you are, your child is offered a scholarship, it's probably hard to turn down, right? If it's not to a private school, it's probably not something that you'd ordinarily have the opportunity to do. But we've definitely seen that with Aussie rules.
And cricket, I've seen a little bit of it as well. I watch, I just wonder. I'm not sure. I'm no expert on that, on the pathway stuff, but I've watched quite a bit of it. And I just wonder how many kids are out there in the suburbs that are not getting talent ID'd.
Yeah.
It's at a young age. There's a couple of issues. Burnout's an issue that we identified. Some of the kids, parents get overzealous and start putting them in 5 teams in a weekend.
Yeah.
So
playing on a Friday night and a Saturday. 60 hours a weekend.
Yeah, 60 hours a week bowling, 60 overs a weekend bowling. So there's burnout across the board. It's not necessarily unique to South Asian parents, but, as someone mentioned in the story, they are looking for the next Sachin all the time. So parents have got to guard against burnout, so that your kid doesn't give up sport by the time they're 14. And education, balancing education and sport's another thing. But if you overcome those 2 problems, it's a slam dunk for Cricket Australia to build this. And I'd say anyone that's resisting South Asian influence on Australian cricket probably hasn't spent any time in the game.
No.
If you've got a local club and you don't have any South Asian players, or people from South Asian families involved, you probably need to ask yourself, well, why is that not happening? And, where can we find extra players? Everyone needs more players, right?
Yeah,
I know
totally.
I grew up in a local club that had 6-7 teams.
Yeah.
And now some teams struggle to get 2 sides. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Because in your piece, you were talking about these clubs gone from 160 to 420 teams, right? And in these newer states, they're actually running out of grounds.
Yeah.
Like that's how does one solve that?
So they're waiting for them. But if you go to these outer suburbs, I'm sure it's in different cities, but we've looked at it in Melbourne. There's an estate. The town planners build the estate. They build great facilities, big grounds, usually huge grounds, like MCG-sized grounds. Sometimes they build like big footy grounds that don't get used that much because, it's not the sport of first choice for new Australians. Okay. But there's always great ovals. But, out in the Melton area, they're waiting for the next suburbs and the next grounds to be built because they just haven't got those. So it's not like the estates are short of grounds; they just need more estates.
Right. Okay.
It's just for the pure mass of population that's coming in and building. And as we know, we sort of build out in our cities; we don't build up. So that urban sprawl is forever happening.
It's funny with India. There's a similar problem with India a few years ago where they knew they had all these players because of the population, but they couldn't. They were basically picking from the same regions in India. And it sounds like Australia might find a similar problem if you don't actually find the talent. Yeah. That unless they go through academies and stuff, then you're not going to find these players.
Yeah, and do what Kawhi just said is you got to have some South Asian role models. So coaching. Right. Yeah. Kawhi made that point.
As well. Yeah.
So I interviewed him a couple of years ago and he said, when I got to a certain level, I just, I looked around and there weren't many people who looked like me, but there were no coaches that I could talk to. So, kids raised in South Asian homes are different. They're raised differently. They might not seek out, the help they need. They might be a bit shy. And
So hang on, are you saying they don't want to sink, bulk, piss and tub up with the boys playing slip and slide with it? Where you got to catch your penis between your balls. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. You're saying that? Are you suggesting that cricket clubs might want to look at those cultures?
That might not be an appealing part of the game, and it might put them off.
Yeah. Well,
news to me.
Yeah.
So you need coaches in there.
It's got to be a cultural exchange somewhere along the line, surely, PK.
Vishram Kumar said that as well. Actually, he made a really good point that and Hazrat Gill said the same thing. Without mentioning all the little extras that you mentioned. When we come into a cricket club, we're engaging in another culture.
Yes.
And we have to understand that this is a culture and that we need to operate within it. And
that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a culture there already.
Yeah.
Bit of give and take maybe. Yeah.
If they want to come here and live here and play in our teams, they've got to do it our way.
It would have been that said, surely.
Yeah.
But the future of cricket is, I would. There's some other sports that would die for the opportunity that cricket's got.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Right.
Because cricket participation in Australia always feels like a loaded subject. I mean, without that South Asian lens, it's to a lot of people, it's a very anachronistic game, made in the 1900s.
Yeah.
And trying to sell that in like a context where everything is entertainment and you can have infinite entertainment in your pocket is really difficult, so we're often, it feels like cricket is less central to the sporting experience of kids these days, but on the flip side, with South Asian immigration, it's just got this absolute surge of participation, right?
Yeah.
Which is the promise of India, and again, just goes to show how much that nation, whatever you'd like to say, with all of its complexity, loves the game.
Yeah, there's a passion there for the game that maybe might not be there. I mean, as your kids sort of grow up, they look at different sports, and if the parents aren't into cricket, the kid's not playing cricket.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Yeah.
And I sort of, I've had, your kids get to sort of 11 and 12. What do your kids do? Oh, mine play cricket. Oh, there's no way I'm sitting there on a Friday night watching that.
Yeah.
So not everyone loves cricket, but that's just sport. Like if there's universities doing studies all the time on the dropout rates of sport. That's another discussion. But kids they try sport. Post-COVID, they might have missed out on that opportunity a bit as well. There might be a drop-off, but kids leave sport all the time, and there's a massive drop-off around the world. America and the UK are the same. So, if there's an opportunity to get kids involved in sport and to keep them in sport, it's really trying to solve some of the bigger problems around, national obesity and mental health and everything. That's, that's me preaching from a sport reporter's point of view.
Interesting, yeah.
Paul Kennedy, plenty of food for thought there. It's I don't think it's very often that you get to engage in a conversation about like the opportunities and promises of immigration and South Asian influence on cricket. I think we're often quite insular about these kinds of things. But really glad that you've come in and been able to tell us about your journalism and in relation to it and how India is basically fueling Australia's cricketing future for the better.
Well, and also if we're going to win in India,
well, exactly.
Then a couple of spinners.
Well, something's going to have to happen, right?
Yeah.
New Zealand did it.
Yeah. How?
Yeah. Well,
they got Ratchin and AUS.
Oh, that's right.
That's what we're saying.
Boys,
PK, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, pleasure. Keep going.
Thanks very much to PK for giving us the time. Full circle moment for TGC when he was so kind to get us on his program on ABC Breakfast Television 9 years ago. Anyway, and support for TGC, and this episode comes from Better Beer. Day for it. Had some better beers over the weekend, Pezza, just celebrating the Christmas period.
How'd you go?
Let the hair down a little bit. Yeah, it was nice. Nice spending time with LJ, festive period, busy time. She's been away heaps. We've obviously been on the road as well, so that was good. But look, not going to lie, Better Beer have sorted this out with some beers around the studio. They've provided too many. Let's call that out. So some have ended up in my fridge at home. But anyway, thanks to Better Beer for getting behind us. Day for it. Let's talk about the Big Bash.
Good.
First and foremost,
and hey,
raise
the energy on this, because the first time we've really talked about the Big Bash, like that's a big fucking pillar of the summer when the Big Bash comes into play.
Yes,
when you're into the blobby leg style.
Yes. So I want to thank everyone that's left messages or contacted us or commented or whatever on our commentary for the Renegades and Hurricanes, that game in Geelong, where we were definitely there, just on the ground there. And
gave us a little space there.
That was a great experience. First time we've done that. This has been something that we've fucked around with, in our own private spaces for the last sort of 3 years or whatever. And look how it's manifested all these years later.
Yeah.
7+ on a Thursday night, and down in Geelong, and we got to see a great game of grade cricket. Where the Hurricanes won up for 74. It was a perfect game. It went for 2 hours. Everyone was having a good time. Some of it was garbage. Some of it was exciting. Some stuff happened. Fraser McGurk got hit in the dick. There were catches down the leg side. There were some fireworks.
Yep. English guy failed.
It was chef's kiss perfect.
Yeah.
But we had a good time.
It was cool. We've got a couple more dates with that to be announced. Mate, I think I don't know how much of it you've been watching, which is your right. Your right is to watch whatever you like of the BBL as it comes to you, or not.
That's how it's
some
promoted.
Some of us have lives. You you got cricket during the day into the night. It's concerning if you're just watching that, pegs on your eyes all day, right?
Yep.
But like at this time of year with the BBL, when it's been going for about a week, it's a kind of ancient Rome, Pollice Verso scenario. Your thumb's sideways.
Yes.
You're looking at the gladiatorial arena. And for me, the thumbs up after the first week.
Yeah, okay, right.
I'm serious. That's not what we've always said.
That's not.
Sometimes we've sat here after a week of the BBL, aligned with a rights holder of the Big Bash League who pays money to broadcast it. And we've sat here and we've been like, this is fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
But not this time, he goes.
No.
And I had my concerns about it. But
interest is high this year.
BBL is good and still very funny. Okay? Hot finishes, loose scenes, village moments, clubby success, chaos reigns, stars look fucked. Still in with the old, but also in with the new.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So I don't really know where you want to start. I've got somewhere.
Okay.
Sixers. Joel Davies, who we haven't discussed this. Joel Davies, many will know, is one half of the Davies brothers.
Right.
Ollie Davies, pretty close to the Aussie side. Joel Davies played a bit for New South Wales. Okay, on his way through himself of the Manly Cricket Club.
Yes.
Now, Joel Davies was selected in the first Big Bash League game that the Sixers had against the Renegades. Close win for the Sixers there. Now, a lot of people were saying. A lot of people were saying the lead up to this game, wasn't Joel Davies playing twos last week? And the answer is yes.
What?
Yeah. So this is according to my sources. Could be wrong. Joel, let me know if I'm incorrect. Probably should have asked. But apparently Joel Davies prepared for the BBL by fucking off first grade the week before, which was up in the country. They have a regional round of first grade cricket.
Okay.
And instead got where they were playing one dayers, I believe, whereas second grade was playing T20s.
Okay.
So he got his reps up.
Little tune up.
Playing twos. Playing T20s in the twos.
Oh, my God.
So basically, Joel Davies prepared for the BBL by playing twos. All right? Had quite a good game.
I bet he did.
In the BBL, that is twos, got knocked around.
Yeah,
All you
well.
can do is get forward. So I just think that, I want to get into what's actually happening in BBL, but it raises a couple of questions. Firstly, why are they taking first grade cricket to the country?
Yeah.
A regional round. Is this are they going out to Bathurst and Moree, Dubbo, and going here you go, community.
Yeah.
Here's the best that first grade's got to offer.
Here's a product.
And they're like, cheers.
Yeah, it's just marketing, isn't it? Yeah, taking the game to different places. How are you supposed to grow the game?
Are there flag poles, like flags hanging off the street lights, up the main street of Dubbo going Premier Cricket comes to town.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, get a ticket.
Randy Pete's against NDs.
Oh, Randy Pete's, they still got Adam Semple.
I like it.
With respect, you said.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's good to see first grade cricket taking it.
Well, speaking of Manly, in the
regions.
Sydney Smash, they had about 8 players contributing to that. They might have even had more than that on both sides.
Yeah. That's a good club.
Yeah, it's a good club.
It's a good club. I just also noted, just on grade cricket here, talking about the BBL, in the News Corp papers, or if it's called the DAZN papers now, or the PIF, I'm not sure, but stats ranked every batter and bowler from men's Sydney grade cricket ranked 2024-25.
Yes, finally.
The holiday break is here, which means it's the halfway point of the Sydney men's grade cricket season. We rank every batting and bowling stat from across all 5 grades of New South Wales Premier Cricket.
Good.
And it's it gives you the top 10 to start with. Good players in the top 10. Daniel Solway's there, a second with a bat, and Bertie Foreman with the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And it gives you the first 10, and it's page 1 of 153.
Good.
So obviously the first thing I do is I just type in 153.
153.
And there's actually somebody I know at the very, very bottom.
Oh, God.
Which is just of 5th grade. And that person's ranked 1,563rd in grade cricket.
So they could get into the top 1,000 in the country. A couple of good scores.
Well, if you're so if you start ranking them in terms of the nation,
yeah.
so that's 1,563 in Sydney.
Yeah.
20 teams, etc.
Proper pyramid.
Yeah. How many would there therefore be in the whole country? You're not multiplying by 6 because other states don't have the same number of teams.
No.
But if you multiply by 3 or 4, you're talking about maybe 5,000 players in grade cricket.
5,000 men's players.
Men's, you're right.
It's like, yeah, okay.
Can you make it like
feels like it's
ATP
less.
tour?
Feels like it'd be more than that.
5,000 blokes play grade cricket across Australia.
Grade cricket.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Or Premier as
Sorry. I was thinking about like other like your warehouse leagues,
your
like in
clubbies,
Queensland,
and real club stuff.
and your turf leagues and that kind of stuff.
No, Premier cricket.
Premier cricket. Okay, yeah, 5,000.
5,000. Yeah. And just wondering over time where, what your top ranking might have been.
See, this time of year, we've always said, how many double hundreds are you away consecutively from
Boxing Day. Right now,
tests,
you need, you need
turns
a
out
really
Konstas
big
need a
score.
50 at Homebush. It's not that hard. It's not that hard at all. But then you got to duck the next game. So Bradman's tough. Only as good as your last score.
Well, that was a good 50 from Konstas, 50 off 20, wasn't it? Was that the game against the Strikers?
Strikers first game.
Strikers, yeah. And that was before Daniel Sams iced it, facing Lloyd Pope.
Yes.
Where they asked him afterwards, what was the moment that you thought, with 30 to get off 2 overs, I've got this? And he said, when Popey came on to bowl.
I'm not sure he needs to name check him. Because I think it was probably a strategic error to bowl Lloyd Pope, the leg spinner, in the second last over. Now, typically we've seen teams before, use their death bowler for the 19th over to create more pressure for the batting side by having more runs than need off that last 6 balls. But yeah, he sort of name checked him, being like, I can get after him here and pump him.
Look, to be fair to Dan Sams, he did make nice comments about Lloyd Pope straight afterwards. I think he sort of fixed it up a little bit, but also a bit harsh against a fellow professional. Yeah. Just to go, well, I knew we'd win when he was coming on a bowl.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the Sydney Smash was a good game, Pezza. Ben Dwarshuis hit Cameron Greenfield, was it 15, 17 at the last over? 15, it might be 15, I think it was. It was like, it's funny, like, I remember just as a kid, now that's 60 years ago now, but if you needed to get like 8 off the last over, it was like, this is going to be touch and go. Now, just like when you watch the IPL, smaller grounds in Australia, of course, typically speaking, but like if the team bowling is defending 22, it's probably just about even.
Yeah, he's batted really well, Ben Dwarshuis.
He has, yeah.
He hits a big ball.
Yeah.
There's Chris Green at the end, a couple of wides there. Davo making the call. Davo not putting the arms out and then scratching his nose. That was a harder one. He had to pretend he was going to fly or something like that if he wanted to cancel it. Yeah, Six has got it done. There was a little bit of chat beforehand as well. Moses saying it's an easy 2 points, and
nice.
Dave Warner's like, if you want to be arrogant about it, et cetera, cricket, et cetera. I liked...
Bancroft scored some runs in that game as well.
Yeah, Bancroft and Warner batting together.
Yep.
That would have been fun.
Yep.
But yeah, I liked there's been some funny stuff as well. Like there was a time when there was a moment where in a game the Strikers were playing. They tried to review an LBW that was given not out, only to be told that there's no DRS. So then they just looked at the third umpire just looked at a camera replay with no ball tracker. They had no ball tracker, so that he just looked at it and went, nah, not out. I liked when Chris Lynn was on commentary and said when he was promoting it, said he's commentating Stars versus the other team.
That's exactly what the Big Bash should be. Right, it's just on.
Exactly.
It's reliable. It's on every night.
Exactly.
Already lost track of the days.
There's been a lot of close finishes though as well.
There's been some good games.
It's good. It's been good fun.
And attendances have been up.
Yeah.
Viewing numbers have been up. So people are into it. I mean, it's amazing what happens when you get a good...
And there's been some dog shit stuff as well, like the game that we commentated. You got to have that. That's part of the
That was
rich
the right
tapestry.
kind of dog shit though.
Yeah.
And then the next game, Mitch Allen for the Hurricanes scores 100.
Exactly. We're asking who he was, probably from grade cricket. Next one, 100. Perfect.
Magnificent.
That's what you can get with our commentary as well. It's the opposite of Ricky Ponting.
It really is the opposite of that.
Yep.
And then McSweeney topped it off last night, 78 red off 49 for the Heat.
And wasn't that
thriller
nice
at the
to see? Strikers
at the Gabba.
It just goes to show how good you can be when Boomer's not on the other team.
Yeah. So two of Australia's openers have scored a 50 against the Strikers in the Big Bash League.
Well, famously, when you get those runs against Jamie Overton, that's when it's time for that promotion.
Something different about Jamie Overton and Bumrah. I don't know what it is in the Big Bash.
Hey, good on Lloyd Pope for bouncing back the next game.
Yeah,
well.
he did. He did.
I like Popey.
Anyway, there's another game on tonight. Game after that.
Melbourne Red. Yeah, tonight.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Depending on when you're listening to this.
Exactly. All right. But yeah, no, sincere thanks for people that got around the commentary and the social stuff. And yeah, it was really cool to have that experience. And we're going to do a few more throughout the summer. So that's cool. New Zealand and Australian women are embroiled in a series.
Yeah.
In an ODI white ball, in an ODI series right now. And the third game is being played right now. The first game was washed out. It's in New Zealand. The second game was in Wellington, though. And Australia won that game. They made 291 in the first innings, and then it rained, and New Zealand were 5 for 122. So Australia won by 65 runs via DLS. But Pezzo, this was a game that you've seen a million times from the Australian women. Right. A game where they are just several times better than the opposition, and it has a feeling of a warm-up game. Yep. It has like you're watching the game and you're like, there is not a single player in the opposition that would make the Australian side. Now, actually, when I think about it, it's almost like that's almost like now New Zealand are world champions. Let's be right about that in the T20 format. They did the thing. They won the thing.
Yeah. But what?
But none of them would make the Australian side, and it's not even close. Alyssa Healy's back after doing a knee, obviously, but she's just playing as a stick. Moons has taken the gloves. Beth Mooney.
I thought Litchfield did, actually. Anyway, yeah.
No, Sophie Molyneux's out of this series as well. There's some concern over her availability for the Ashes with some knee soreness, some knee awareness, as we learnt recently. Now, in this game, said Australia made 291. Annabelle Sadler made 105 from 81 with 11 fours and 2 sixes. She became, here's some Equinox stuff, Pezza, she became the first woman to score back-to-back hundreds in ODIs from number 5 or lower. Mm-hmm. But what I found interesting about Annabelle Sutherland, or what I do find interesting about her, is that like when we spoke to the Australian players during Headshots Day in like August or whenever that was, and we spoke to like some of the players about like Litchfield, who's a bit younger but like has sort of some prodigy about her. But everyone said, including Phoebe Litchfield, that no, Annabelle Sutherland's the prodigy. You know, she's the one to like take the next, to take the flame to the next generation. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a saying.
She could bat anywhere.
Anyway, there's a game happening right now, and Australia have made 290.
Australia's made 290. He goes and also 36 extras. So Gardner 74, Annabelle Sutherland 42, Litchfield 50, Healy 39, extras 36, Mealy Kerr 454, and
she's a good player.
She's a good player. She might make the side.
No, she wouldn't.
Yeah, no. And New Zealand's none for 4, and that's game over.
See, they get the honour of us being bored of them winning so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great. It's a touching tribute. AskTGC, Pezza, brought to you by Smith Optics Australia. Oh, yeah. Now, some news with Smith Optics, actually, Pezza, because we've seen Travis Head wearing the, I think he's been wearing the Bobcats, the Smith Optics Bobcats. Now, if you are looking for gifts, last-minute gifts, I highly recommend for the party pig, for the athlete, or anything in between, for the party pig or the athlete, and everything in between, smithopticsaustralia.com. You know, you got someone that wants to chew their face off in a kitchen, at 5 a.m. Or someone that wants to, do some road work, do some track work at 5 a.m. as well. There are wide options available. I'm sure Smith Optics are happy with that plug. You can use the code FAST for 25% off your order, plus you get a free TGC cloth with your gift. We spoke about this previously, but half the Australian teams wearing Smith Optics right now, and they'll all be receiving, inside that package, they'll be getting a TGC cloth gift, which I'm sure they're happy with. Now, there's a new style though, Pezza, the ultralights, and this might be their fastest pair yet, let me tell you. It's colourful.
They are light.
It's colourful, it's fast, it's electric, and it makes you feel incredibly safe. And let me tell you, the peepers have never felt better than right now.
Mate, my pupils are just like ensconced in this lens. Like, as in, it is fully covered. There's no other light getting in.
Wind can't even get in there.
Oh. I'm just thinking about Smith Optics as well, that Australia is being carried by its 2 ambassadors, Pat Cummins and Travis Head.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I don't know if he's an actual ambassador, but he's wearing them.
He's just wearing them, yeah.
He's wearing them.
Yeah.
So once again, correct choices.
So these are the ultralight performance sunglasses. Now, this model is just launched in the US. It's got a real 80s electric vibe to them, like a synth electric vibe to them.
Well, I think that a couple of years ago, the sheer size of this lens would have been discomforting to people.
Yes.
but that's how fashion works.
Yeah.
And now it feels like Smith Optics plus all the shithouse brands that try and copy it
Yeah.
are like in an arms race to make the biggest lens. Just make the biggest coverage on the face possible.
These are Smith's best work,
and
I reckon.
And once again, Smith is leading the way.
These are Smith Optics' best work. Anyway, so this has just been launched in the US and it's gone big. I'm told.
I mean, Cummins was using these when he was trying to convince the umpires that there was no light issue.
He was at the Gabba, yeah. And then he went back and he told the boys that he was doing it as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Bit of banter there. So there's very limited stock in Australia. There's only about 120 units until March next year. Okay, so you have to get in real quick. So it's smithoptics.com and you can go the ultralight performance sunglass. So the model is very strong retro style, looks awesome, exceptionally lightweight and functional. There you go, ticks every single box that you'd want from a sunglass.
Apologies.
Well done to Smith Optics and for getting behind TGC. And indeed for supporting AskTGC, where we once again spoke to the pay pigs throughout this podcast. And here's a couple of questions, Pezzo. Decent, hard-working Australian said, will TGC be taking questions in English or Hindi? Very good.
Well, I was thinking of going to the press conference tomorrow and asking a question in Hindi. Why can't we be friends?
We'd be much bigger if we spoke Hindi. There, I said it. Something funny, Pezzo Higo said, can you side mouth how are you, Pud, as a nod to the Auntie Donna Christmas tradition, please?
I just think let the Pud Christmas tradition be unsullied by our words. It's just one of the great clips of all time. You don't need us to overlay ourselves into it, you know?
Customer said, has Cummings declared full confidence in Constance? Perfect stuff.
Is the idea behind that like... Yeah, because when you get full confidence of the board, you're about to get sacked.
You have to get sacked, yeah.
Is that the joke there?
Well, he's also... I guess what he's also trying to go with is like Cummings and Constance, so a little of Australian wordplay stuff there. Well, not wordplay, just Australians not being able to say people's last names.
Oh, yeah, we're on Constance watch.
Yes.
Like people who just can't say Constas. Like
Yeah.
just get rid of the N. It's not hard. Like we do talk, like there are power rankings in private in this studio of the laziest mouths in Australia.
Definitely.
And those people will be saying Constance. Just say Constas.
Yep.
Is that snobbish to say? It's just the lettering of his name.
People seem to laugh when you say someone's name properly. It's a thing here.
Yeah, but like if he does score runs, is it how soon before we see the headline Konstas Craving?
Konstas In.
That's a different search.
Hi, Healy Homited said, how was the TGC Christmas party? We've been trying to organise one for about 3 years.
So it'll be big when it happens.
And everyone's invited.
Yeah.
Punter, forearm pulling through mid-wicket, I'm guessing. Since the Boxing Day test is actually important to the series for the first time in a decade, do I abandon all plans with family and friends to watch it, or do I keep my plans and just check the score on my phone and scoff under my breath?
Watch the first session.
Yeah.
Depending on Australia's position in said session, you then make your choice accordingly. So, if they're down, revert to the walking past exhalation.
Yep.
Family plans. If they're doing well, if Konstas is nearing 100, or, Scotty Boland's on a roll, then you're abandoning your family.
I think that this is a day where it's sacrosanct to do anything with a family other than to just watch 14 to 16 hours of cricket. I think you have to have some sort of second day meat on you.
Yep.
And just in and around you, maybe some chocolate if that's your proclivity as well. But it has to be just on. You're looking at probably 2 or 3 different devices.
Yeah.
You feel like shit.
Yeah. I think your stomach has to protrude through
big time.
The consumption to the point where you query whether you have a gluten intolerance. Like you start to wonder, has this been the issue all along?
Yeah. There has to be a time in the day where you feel your heart miss beats and you think like, is this how it ends for me?
Am I in arterial fibrillation?
At 2 for 35.
Yeah. Or have I just eaten 4,500 calories of meat?
It's absolutely essential that you start making noises that you've never made out of your body before, whilst you're completely horizontal.
Any examples?
I'm so fresh. And then when someone fails, you have to talk to yourself, or to no one in particular, just saying like, he should be dropped.
Yeah.
More ham.
Does it sound like you talk to someone like you've got a butler?
Like generations of inbreeding.
More Jay-Z. Bring it! Sorry.
Someone like a James Hollingworth said, main thoughts between the Gabba and Boxing Day test. How do I make the right first impression in my new cricket team's WhatsApp group?
Why are you in a new cricket team?
Yeah, this time of year.
This time of year?
Oh, does you mean like moving between the grades? Like each grade might have a...
Well, it could be from England. Has he changed? But
yeah,
like,
I think...
Are people in England like, you know, making social decisions with the context of the period in between the Gabba and Boxing Day? Is it so prevalent to the you know the calendar of the UK, to the rhythms in the winter where you got your Sunday roast, the Christmas cheer, you know, everywhere's warm.
Big bashes on
at 11 a.m.
11 a.m. It's red versus teal tonight.
How do I make the right first impression? How do you make the right first impression in your new cricket team's WhatsApp group?
Well, I wouldn't go for anything too big.
Just a picture of a fucking monster cock. just a picture of a monster cock, of Rasputin's cock. Say, here's me.
Looking forward to the winter nets, boys.
Which is reputedly a horse cock, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently.
Here's me. I bat 3. I mean, what would, if you joined a team and that happened?
Yeah. I'd be like, this guy's coming on way too strong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'd be keeping a low profile. I wouldn't be sending like any GIFs or memes. I'd be like, I'd just keep a low profile.
Okay.
Keep a tight game in the cricket group.
Let me change that then to like away from Rasputin / horsecock.
Yep.
To probably his actual penis.
So he's just sending a dick pic to...
But it's an impressive it is remarkably big, like, you know, to the point where you must remark upon it.
Fuck, that's pretty funny, actually. So...
Is that coming on strong?
Is there a caption?
Here's me.
That's it.
I haven't met him. The number on his is a random number with a little fucking squiggle at the start.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Like,
I'd be excited to play with him.
Comes with no reputation, just like he's just in the team. We've picked Tom Brooks.
Yeah,
we've made that name up.
See, there's a chance that no one replies for like 3 to 4 weeks. Then until
there's a lot of side chats going on.
Dave has left the group.
Yeah. It'd elicit whispers.
Yeah, it's something.
Because what if somebody says, like, mate, inappropriate, have to delete that. Like, probably not appropriate.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be backing that idea, would you? You wouldn't be saying, like, I think you should take that off the group. That doesn't really belong in this decade.
No. And we do it for our work group. for our business group. I included it in my tax return this year, actually.
As a receipt.
Yeah, it's Zampa's receipts. Yeah. And last one, Pezza, from King Carlos. Congrats and well deserved in advance for the DAZN check you get, mates. I don't think we're part of that group just yet, but
have been.
Thanks so much for supporting TGC this week and indeed this year. You know what? There'll be one more main podcast by the end of the year, I believe. But looking forward to. I can't wait for the box set test. This one's going to be one of the all-time greats.
Into the SCG.
Into the SCG, into everything that is the new year in 2025, and of course seeing all our heading home for the Sydney live show with Ricky Ponting joining us on stage for that one. So if you want to come and join us for some tickets in Melbourne, there are some tickets available for that second show. But mouth-watering stuff. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, heat. Oh, it's going to be everything. Oh, and by the way, we're doing side mouth outside the MCG on Boxing Day.
We'll let you know where. We're probably going to do it in and around where we did the 2022 World Cup, right?
Most likely. But if you've made it this far and you've found a little Easter egg here, and by any Easter egg, I mean, I'm literally just telling you what's happening. Side mouth outside the MCG for Boxing Day at the end of play. So, all right, we'll see you guys real soon on the internet. Can't wait to see what happens next in this series. Cheers.